Hello, listeners. Welcome to Brewing Talks. This is your host, Madhulika. I'm very excited that this season two is looking really good. We have some amazing guests so far, and not just about the guests, but it's also about the amazing topics that we've been able to cover. Obviously with the core overarching theme of marketing, advertising, branding. So today's episode is also, I think, is one of my favorite topic. Though I'm not a very seasoned person to get into the detailing part of it, but I can be confident to say that at least being from advertising and marketing industry, I've been observing this sector and segment for a very long time, right? Because I think this is one of the sector that is very heavy when it comes to all kinds of advertising and marketing, but especially the front line. And when you talk about the top of the staying on the top of the game as such, it's the sector and the segment that I'm focusing on is the automotive industry, and we're going to focus on the different advertising and marketing trends that's prevailing over the years. And I think today, with the advent of EVs coming up, I think there's a lot to talk about and intersect. So to join me in this conversation, I have an extremely seasoned media professional, and and the reason I have him on this show for this particular episode is because okay, let me actually mention his name. He's Ashish Jha. Ashish has been close to more than 2 decades in this industry, and he was the founding editor of NDTV Auto, which is now called Car and Bike. So, first of all, Ashish, welcome to Brewing Talks. It's pleasure to have you, and I think it's been years that we connected. So, thanks for being on the show as well.
No, thank you, Badhu. It's always very refreshing and exciting to speak with you. So, thank you very much for getting me on the show. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And since you've been, and let me also tell one thing about Ashish that currently, so he's worn many hats, right? He was also with National Geographic Traveler, and he's been handling different beats, different industries, different sector. But he currently is the founder and editor in chief of Seven Tets, which Ashish will obviously. I'll let him speak a little more about his own venture. So first of all, congratulations, Ashish, for on this as well. So I think let's start with this conversation because you've been in for 2 decades. You've been in a part of the automotive industry, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of things changing, shaping up, evolving. So first, before we get into detailing about what's advertising in segment sector today in this industry today, could you just highlight, what has been the overall trends in the automotive industry? What's driving? What are the things driving, and how do you see this? Different changes coming up.
Well, Madhu, there have been a lot of trends over the years in the automotive industry, and we all essentially, I can speak of myself in this, but we belong to an era where we grew up with the ambassadors and the Fiat 1100s or the Maruti 800s. Well, that came slightly later in mid 80s, 83. But we've grown up around those kind of things. And as the industry opened up, there have been a lot of changes that have happened, and we have seen all of that transition as well. So it's not just one trend. There have been many trends, right from the days of the big burly cars to then more rational products in the shape of Maruti 800 that just kind of revolutionized the entire industry. Then we had the advent of diesels becoming very important. And now there is a lot of concentration on some other aspects like safety is one very big attribute that people are looking at. Green is another very big topic that is being fulfilled by electric mobility. So a lot of trends in terms of how the automotive landscape has evolved, and in line with that, also the marketing or the communication strategies have also evolved. So in short, it's essentially it's always walked alongside the two things. So yeah, we've had a lot of different time capsules, a lot of different trends, and overlapping that, a lot of different communication strategies as well.
Okay, great. So before we move, we get into a little more in depth with the advertising, marketing trends, and everything. I think it's also important. How are the customers' preferences changing? So is it like, and how much is it shaping this industry today? So let's say, I think I'm jumping to this point a little earlier than what I thought, but let's say we spoke. You also spoke about EVs, right? So the electric vehicles are really is this more of a fad that's becoming that, okay, I want to have an EV vehicle, or people are really conscious about being more environmental friendly today? So what is driving the consumer's way of looking at, purchasing a new car or a vehicle as such?
So it's not really a fad. I'm not really going to say that it's a passing trend or something like that. It's a robust technology that has actually been around since ages. In fact, even before the ICE technology or the combustion technology ever became so popular, it was electric that was driving the innovation right in the starting ages of the automobile.
Hmm.
So it has been in the minds of people for a very long time. It's only now, over the last, say, 15, 20 years, ever since, in fact, Elon Musk became the poster boy for a lot of people, and there has been a lot of buzz around Tesla, that the global conversation started getting kind of, slanted towards electric vehicles. But at the same time, before that, there was Honda and Toyota, they were
Hmm.
doing phenomenal stuff as well.
Yeah.
While with hybrids, but hybrids also have an element of electric, battery is there, and you store the
Correct.
energy and everything. So it's been around for a while. It's only that over the last, I would say, about 15 years, people have been talking very actively about it. And in India, this trend has kind of gained its legs over the past 7, 8 years. Tata has done a very, very good job with its small electric vehicles, because if we look at everything in the industry right now is more a top-down approach. Look
Hmm.
at all the luxury players; they bring in the very expensive models, and then it kind of filters down to the smaller models. But Tata has done the absolute opposite. It was the Nexon. They brought in the
Hmm.
Tigor, the Punch EVs here.
Yeah.
So Tata has really revolutionized the space for the Indian customers, and the customers have also become a lot more mature, and they
Hmm.
have definitely had the inclination towards green mobility and saving the planet and all the good stuff, the good PR around that technology.
Hmm.
So it's the sensitivity of the people, but at the same time, the sensibility of the industry as well.
Okay, interesting. So now, okay, let us now come to the core area of our conversation. It's about the advertising. The way the messaging, the content has been shaping up for different brands. Like there's a lot of entry of a lot of international brands also that we've seen over the years, right? And but we also know a lot of traditional and the Indian players who've been, doing a great job with the way they are connecting with the end audience. So, I mean, if I talk about a Tata Nano story, when they launched in India, right? So that's a different ballgame. In fact, we can have a separate conversation about the way the whole campaign shaped up and what worked well and what didn't go well with that, as such. But then we have a lot of aspirational aspect to the way advertising in this industry works, right? Because there's a lot of high energy in the way it's communicated to the end audience. When you own a car, it's like it's not just a car; it's a lifestyle, correct? So, what is the current advertising, or what is the way that the brands are looking at come, like you spoke about the green mobility part for EVs. You spoke about, like the people are also, audience are getting, customers are getting environmental conscious, and you do some bit for the society, right? So they are also conscious while making these decisions. But do we see this being effectively spoken in the commercials that we see for such brands? Does it really come out as one of the highlights? Because I don't remember an ad or a communication that really focuses on this aspect, right? I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to the fact that how stylish your vehicle looks, how beautiful the accessories are, and whatever mileage that it gives you. So what is the direction that the brands are taking in the way they are communicating today? And obviously with the new rise of different brands and different versions of the vehicles available, but what was, and versus to what was there in the past?
It's very exciting that you mentioned the nano, and the broad conversation is going to definitely make me ramble on for some time, because
Correct.
it is very important that we look at the uh, the journey of the Indian automotive marketplace itself, because
Hmm.
come to think of it, we are fairly recent when it comes to describing a market as mature or somewhat established or grown up, because uh, we really have to look at it in, as I said, time capsules. Because before the independence, it was very open, quite literally, a completely open market, and everything was getting imported. We have big burly American bruisers and cars going about,
Hmm.
but the percentage of people who had the purchasing capacity at the time, that was microscopic. So that did not make sense because it did not represent the majority of the nation. Then, of course, we gained independence, 1947. All that happened, and our alignment towards growth and development was very conservative. It was a thought process that was not full throttle capitalist in our approach,
Hmm.
because that would have given us very rapid transformation, growth, development, everything. But we chose to be very gradual and deeply focused on local issues, developing our own industrial systems, of course, but agriculture was the main priority, and we
Hmm.
were always an agri society.
Yeah.
uh, so there was a vacuum, I think, if I may, use that word. There was a vacuum from, say, the early 50s, or from 19, yeah, early 50s, 52, 53, or somewhere around that,
Hmm.
uh, till almost around the time that the Maruti 800 came around in 1983.
Okay.
We did not really have a lot of automotive action happening,
Correct.
because, quite frankly, we had pretty awful cars.
Yeah.
It's okay to get nostalgic about them, and
Correct.
I remember we grew up around the Ambassadors or the Fiat 1100s or the standard 2000s, but those were, and I can say this with confidence because I've driven all of these over the last 20 years as well. Those are
Hmm.
very miserable in many, many ways, and reliability was pathetic. The build quality was
Hmm.
like soap and water. Uh, so, yeah, not great. So, if the product attributes were not solid, what innovative advertising would you do anyway? You really had to be very radical to communicate something about a car that would stand out,
Hmm.
which to a certain extent happened with some odd examples here and there. But
Hmm.
I don't think also that the advertising industry was all too evolved in the automotive genre at that time.
Hmm. Hmm.
In fact, I think with the 800 coming in, efforts in the marketing and advertising space were uh, not heavily invested in the automotive cosmos, so to say. So I think it was truly, again, reflecting on the entire industry and how the communication strategies have evolved. I think it was essentially with Tata, and to a certain extent also Bajaj, that the ad industry even started talking about the category more seriously. And kudos to Tata, because Tata's ads have always been, or rather, they used to be quite classy. I remember the Sierra was absolutely fantastic, and Mukul Dev, I believe his name was, the, uh, the the guy who featured in the ad. He became an overnight success also because of the Sierra ad, because he was more a model till then, and then advertising started happening his way. But that Sierra ad of the car, or the guy driving into the porch, getting off, going inside to change. Meanwhile, the car just gets into the gear, goes about, throws itself in the woods, gets dirty, comes back, parks itself in the porch again for the guy, because it matches what the guy is wearing, which is almost like a cowboy outfit with a hat and the rope and everything. So that, without any dialogue, established the whole vibe of the car, established what the car was all about, which was adventure and exploring the life beyond just the urban jungle. Uh, Similarly, the original Safari ad and the taglines were so beautiful. Make your own road. It just gave a very beautiful, commanding theme to the car itself. And that was the original Safari. Then came, I think it was Reclaim Your Life. Again, a very smart, tight sort of an ad where you had the right audience set. That is what actually made the advert stand out for me at the time, because the Safari was being bought by slightly seasoned executives, professionals who've been uh, in their professional life for some time. They've had the money and everything. So the ad also featured similar kind of profile of people,
Right.
and a guy standing with mob just moving around him, uh, and saying that I wanted to just escape this. And
Hmm.
then that whole film goes, and there is not a single shot of the car till all the four people have spoken about their
Hmm.
you know misery or suffering or whatever it may be.
Right, right.
And then the car comes, so it hits you in your face
Yes, it
that
does.
what is it that this ad is trying to tell me, and then
Hmm.
it shows me the car that is going to make me reclaim my life. And
Hmm.
that was such a powerful statement. And why I mentioned Bajaj is also because as Indians, we've always been very fascinated with jingles.
Hmm.
We've had, song and dance sequences in the movies as well. So,
Correct.
music and jingles or any of these kind of artistic things are always ingrained in us.
Correct.
And Bajaj gave us one of the most outstanding jingles ever, Hamara Bajaj. And
Hmm.
that I think worked because the jingle was about the brand.
Yeah.
In fact, there had been a few more advertisements before the Bajaj advert came out that
Hmm.
had jingles, but they were nothing to do with a brand as such, and it was tough to follow because the visuals were very different to the jingle that was going on in the background.
Hmm.
But Bajaj was concentrated on the emotion of Hamara Bajaj, and
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
really kind of established the brand in the minds of people. So I
Correct.
think it's this journey that gave birth to the concept of automotive advertising. Before that, I think, as I said, there was a void from the 50s till about the mid 80s. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so I think that is a journey that we should be really thankful for.
Absolutely.
And uh, I think the 90s till the late 2010s, we did some okay advertising. We did some pretty good stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think the advertising past is like that for us.
Yeah, so this is what the real thing is now, is that we are actually talking about the past. uh, I think you so rightly said. I think the advertising was a lot about humanizing the car in this case. If
Totally,
you see, right, like in all the example that you mentioned, there is a lot of emotional connect that is being built with the end audience. It's not just about
absolutely.
showing a machine and the how the machine performs. It's not at all about that. It's actually a lot about the way the it's connecting with you emotionally at a deeper level. And
Yeah,
that is the reason why you are actually giving examples of all these campaigns, correct? Because somewhere it has resonated very strongly with you, not just from the product's perspective, but from the way it's being perceived from your emotional quotient perspective as well. So,
yeah. I
and
mean, think about it. I
yeah,
don't remember a single ad, despite being from the industry. The modern
correct,
advertising landscape is just about the product and
correct,
how the features are and everything. There is no story, so it hits you for a second and you forget about it because you
absolutely,
just you just acknowledge that, okay, fine, this car is giving me X Y Z, which is something that even another car is giving me in the marketplace.
correct, correct.
But it's the emotion, the storyline that really matters, and that for the longest time has been missing in our
So
landscape.
this is what I want to now come to the point here, is that I think especially this has been, I think, towards the 20 to 2000, I think 5 onwards or something, or I don't know to be very precise which year we're talking, but this is something which is I'm taking the liberty to literally make this judgment and say that where is the creativity in this sector when it comes to advertising, right? Like you gave examples of so many campaigns because this sparks a sense of creativity in the way it was made, or it was designed or whatever. But what's happening today? Why is every brand trying to follow this very typical pattern? There must be something that they've sensed that this is where the market is. When you're talking about the millennial audience, who are wanting a lot of high energy volume driven ads where there's a huge husky looking sounding voiceover, and you're just taking your car on a highway or some sort of a desert, and you're driving down and you show the product's capabilities and whatever else performance. But that's where it is all about. Or chalo, once in a while you take your family out, you see a kid sitting in the back seat with her mother, and they are enjoying the drive, but that's it. So do you think, is this what it's driving maybe? Or because I really can't differentiate one brand from the other. If you ask me, Madhu, do you remember off late which was the brand you saw in that commercial? I can't just remember because they all looks the same to me. So
Hmm.
why is it? What is it that's driving this kind of advertising in this industry today?
Well, I'll just say that it's not that we have not seen any advertising that has been impactful. I think the Mahindra brand advertising was
Mm-hmm.
pretty on point, and live young, live free.
Hmm.
It was very cinematic. It was delivered with the right kind of visuals. the right kind of lifestyle that Mahindra wanted to
Hmm.
associate with their cars.
Hmm.
So the Live Young, Live Free campaign was pretty decent. And I prefer the first one compared to the second one. But
Yeah.
having said that, it still was there. Some
Hmm.
advertising guys were thinking about communicating the emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not just about product.
Correct.
But that is what a brand ad was. If you
Hmm.
look at the product ads, they're all the same. I mean, you can just remove one product from the advert and
Yeah.
fix another one, and it's literally going to make no
True.
difference,
True.
or hardly any, if at all. Yes, so the story is missing over there, and that is down to the fact that we are just not uh, in the game of storytelling. We're in the
Hmm.
game of 30-second spots.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think we've lost touch with
Hmm.
how much can be done in those 30 seconds,
Hmm.
and we're just concentrating on, or the brief is to just focus on what the car gives you in terms of features.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because there has been such a road, or such an influx of exceedingly high number of features in the cars
Yeah.
that even the consumers are sometimes very confused on what is it that I want, what is it that I'm getting, and
Hmm.
what is it that is irrelevant.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the manufacturers want to just ride on the fact that they are offering everything.
Hmm. Hmm.
And how do you communicate that? In a film that shows, even if there is a tangential storyline attached to the whole emotional quotient, uh, like, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of a tangent over here.
Okay.
I was talking to somebody, and because I've been in the strategy side of things and marketing side of things as well, I was discussing how we can integrate a brand in a very nice way in a 1 minute film.
Hmm.
And uh, the the agency guy was just like, you know what, this is not going to work because the brand wants you to touch the screen, show the navigation. And my submission or my argument was that, hey, you know what, I have activated the navigation, and it's there for the audience to see in the film because the screen is getting recorded, the
Correct.
infotainment screen on
Correct.
which the map is going to play out. And the guy says, no, 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 you will have to show that it's a touch screen and you can zoom in,
Hmm.
zoom out. Uh, and I just replied to the guy saying, you know what? I think you're getting the whole story wrong because this is going to
Hmm.
go on the tube.
Hmm.
Uh, and tube is watched generally by people who have eyes.
Hmm.
They'll be able to see what is going
Correct.
on.
Correct.
So
Correct.
you don't have to be so literal, and you don't have to think that the audience is absolutely dumb. Yes, there is this theory that you need to explain everything in a way that is very simple, and you should think of the audience as being absolutely, non-initiated in that topic.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's not the case anymore. Everybody knows what an infotainment screen is. Everybody knows what a navigation is, and they get to see it. You don't have to
Hmm.
show it so deliberately.
Hmm.
So that is where I think the chase of just uh, showing everything that a car has in terms of features, and
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
really caring about the story behind what that
Hmm.
car can give you in terms of the customer associating with it or feeling emotionally in touch with it is something that has, I think, yeah, gone by the wayside.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's somehow become a lot more mechanical than what it was earlier. And I think you said something very interesting. Actually, it's also we are basically comparing the past with what's going on today. But I think let's not forget that today it's a very digital heavy, mediums that a lot of brands are dependent on. So I think we see it from, let's say, a television commercials perspective. But I think a lot of audience are sitting and watching the same content or similar content on YouTube, which has that 5 second skip, a thing available to you. So you got to grasp that attention. So you cannot be like slow and steady in the beginning and then try to get more emotive about it, because that's not going to work in that area, right? And 30 seconds, the world of reels and everything. So I think that's where people are trying to get to the point as soon as possible without trying to. But maybe there could be much smarter ways and innovative ways of tackling that issue. I'm sure that can be recognized sooner or later.
No, absolutely. In fact, I completely agree with the fact that it's the age of 5 second content.
Hmm.
If you're unable to grip the audience in 5 seconds, you've lost it.
Yeah.
But that is not to say that you cannot grip an audience with something nice and unique.
True. True.
In fact, I'm going to actually now point to some some print advertising that used to happen back in the day, or even to some extent today happens in the international press all the time. Uh, very bold. Like for example, Porsche and Volkswagen have been absolutely brilliant at
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
Porsche would say, no, I'm not going to take that example. It's a little bit
Okay.
controversial, but there was one ad. Okay, fine. This is actually very cool. So there
Okay.
was one ad which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it was
Hmm.
Porsche, 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 Porsche,
Okay.
Sauber, and Porsche,
Okay.
and says nobody's perfect.
Hmm.
It just shows so much of humility, but at the same time so much of brand confidence that, hey,
Correct.
you know what, we have been acing it. There was
Oh.
one miss because we are still not perfect and we are
Hmm.
chasing that perfection. So it's
Lovely.
the chase that
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
concentrating on, but at the same time announcing the authority that you have in the space as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Similarly, there was a phenomenal ad by, I think it was Daihatsu, I believe. It was a minivan,
Hmm.
and again, it's it's extremely quirky, and I don't know if it's ever going to fly in today's time with all the different sensibilities and sensitivities we have going on in the public. But Daihatsu said picks up 10 times more women than a Porsche or some supercar. I'm forgetting
Okay.
because
Okay.
it was a van and it used to, carry a lot of people in the. So that is impactful, right?
Yeah.
If you translate that in a rolling ad, in a
Hmm.
motion picture sort of a thing,
Hmm.
or sorry, not a motion picture because that's a full length thing, but in terms of video ad, that can be done in nice and unique ways, right?
Hmm.
So it's all about how you understand the subject, how you think about it from a creative standpoint, and it's not necessary that you have to shout about everything and pack the 5 seconds or 30 seconds with so much information that just is overwhelming for the consumer.
Yeah.
You can be very quiet about it, very
Hmm.
discreet. You actually can leave the whole canvas completely empty and speak a lot more
True.
rather than doing it the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are much smarter and intelligent ways of
Yeah.
communicating, to the audience, which you just gave as an example. Okay, now let's come to this area where I've been wanting to converse with you about. So I think it was mid of December last year where we suddenly saw there's a lot of noise coming up with some campaign that is being launched and rebranding happening. So I'm sure you understood what I'm talking about, right? So Jaguar suddenly decided to just go very different, right? They've changed their logo, the whole typeface has changed. They've like it's like a full 360-degree, different, like a complete change that's taken place. Why? And well, actually, you know what? The reason why I bring up this topic, or I ask this question, because while there could be a certain noise created and a certain sentiment it created about this decision by the brand, but I think each one has its own perspective of looking at it. And you coming from this industry of working and being a part of this industry for many years, Ashish, I think it's very very important for me to understand where how you saw this rebranding taking place by this brand, where like people had connected so beautifully with the last earlier previous positioning of the brand. Suddenly what happened, and how is this going to help them in the long term, or
Uh,
whether it's going to help them at all?
uh, uh, so I'm a little conflicted over here because I belong to the enthusiast and the journalistic community as well. And I'm also a brand marketer in my other life.
Correct.
So I look at it from two different perspectives, but at the same time, they're very converging when I think about it deeply. So
Hmm.
I've looked at it from both sides of the coin, to
Okay.
be honest,
Okay.
and I've had elaborate conversations with some people as well. And I kind of understand what they're trying to chase, but
Hmm.
having evaluated it for well over couple of months now, and I was always very firm in my observation at that time. But yeah, you get more and more time to absorb it. You get more and more time to think about it. But I frankly don't think it has worked or it's going to work in a big way for the brand.
Hmm.
And I'll give you my reasons for it. Of course, people can say that it's riding the wave. Everybody has been criticizing it, so it's easy
Yeah.
for you to
Correct.
criticize it and move on.
Correct.
Uh, or it could be the other way, that I am trying to ride the wave of being different from other people,
Mm-hmm.
and giving you some sense of what they have tried to do in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I am going to be the majority, because I think it really hasn't worked. Firstly, the first video that they did was with a bunch of people,
Hmm.
colorful clothes, different
Hmm.
ethnicities, and all of that. So
Correct.
it was to show that the brand was moving in a certain direction: inclusivity, vibrant personalities, a lot more on that tangent.
Just
Uh,
to also interrupt here, they were also the idea was to coincide with the launch of their EV
Yeah,
production.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but they did not show the car in the first advert. It was
Hmm.
just that canvas.
Correct. Correct.
Uh, so at that time, with the first effort, they showed no car. So
Hmm.
Jaguar could have been anything. The
Hmm.
thought is to connect with the younger, more fluid generation, so to say.
Correct.
But the facts, and this is research based,
Okay.
that this generation is not too keen on car ownership. It's a global perspective, and Jaguar is a global brand. So you
Hmm.
have to take that into consideration as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone from this generation who, for the sake of argument, that person had not heard of Jaguar, the car company, could interpret this advertising in any manner. It could be an apparel line or a bags line, or something by some famous rap singer.
Hmm.
But then the second one came about, which showcased the concept car,
Hmm.
and suddenly the same generation was in a bit of a shock, because they suddenly realized it's a car company,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So there is a bit of a dichotomy over there, and the very product that they've got little affinity for anyway,
Hmm.
uh, the younger audience, so it does not really work for the brand.
Correct.
And I've spoken to a few people, as I said. I was sitting down with some marketing guys,
Mm-hmm.
and Jaguar's rebranding in all these months, and there were counter statements that reflected on how the brands are moving away from their traditional identities to
Right.
flat surfaces and simple visual identities and all that. The Jaguar rebranding is not only redoing the fonts, I think it's not
Mm-hmm.
only redoing the visual identity. In fact, I'm actually not averse to the font that much. It's a
Hmm.
shift,
Correct.
definitely,
Yeah.
but it's more a shift in the ethos and the way of thinking of the brand.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's where I think it has gone wrong fundamentally.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, uh, there is also a cultural element at play. Because to me, it
Mm-hmm.
feels it's a bit too removed from its sense of being British.
Hmm.
And uh, there are all sorts of cars from every country. There are typically American cars, big
Mm-hmm.
muscle cars, and you have a sense of either a massive truck, a pickup truck, or a massive hemi laden muscle
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
Then we have a certain sense of German cars, precision, luxury, BMW, Mercedes. So you
Right.
have a sense of what, uh, in terms of car, you'll get from Germany.
Hmm.
Similarly, for Japan, frugal engineering, fantastic engineering, lightness, this, that, and everything.
True.
So similarly, there is a tonality, a certain tonality, or a cultural stance, if I can call it that,
Mm-hmm.
with British cars as well. And I think Jaguar has gone a bit astray over here. It's gone a bit south.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that sense
And
of
it's a
regality that.
complete shift, right, from being a very classy brand to something so vibrant and young as, and it's all reflecting in their colors and everything that they've done with the rebranding.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'll urge you to look at another thing.
Okay.
You said that they're going to be all electric, and I must add that they're also trying to be super premium.
Okay.
Uh, and we'll come to the all electric part in just a bit. But if Jag is
Mm-hmm.
going to be super premium, then the target customer is anyway a bit older, because
Yeah.
those guys have the purchasing capacity.
Correct.
Unless, of course, you're talking about
Correct.
going to the young tech and fashion startup guys who have had great exits or something,
Hmm.
that's a different thing. That's your target audience, great, but
Hmm.
that's very very small, right?
Correct.
It's the typical generation that you're targeting is our generation
Correct.
or the older millennials
Correct.
perhaps,
Correct.
who have that bank balance to buy such an expensive car.
Hmm.
But they've all grown up with the legend of what Jaguar was, and they
Hmm.
want to buy a Jaguar for some of that nostalgia and the story,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
not for what essentially has become now. But in
Hmm.
terms of positioning, again, they're trying to go, against the likes of Bentley, for example.
Hmm.
Taking another British brand over
Hmm.
here,
Hmm.
they're
Hmm.
trying to compete against Bentley, and in the how should I put this? Uh, in the posh world where
Hmm.
prestige is all important,
Yeah.
does Jaguar, with its playful video and the slightly more casual typeface, does it have the wherewithal to swing people away from the mighty brand prestige and royalty of
Correct.
a brand like Bentley?
Correct.
I
Correct.
I genuinely don't think they have, and I have my
Yeah.
reservations on that.
And it's going to take a lot of effort for them to break that mindset of how people have perceived that brand, right? And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, after that one launch, there has been no consistent any more visibility about what they're trying to do as a part of the campaign set 2, set 3, or whatever. So
Yeah.
they've just suddenly gone silent. So either they're rethinking about what went wrong and how to repair it, or I'm not sure. I mean, but this is just a complete silent period right now.
No, you're right, because they showed a concept car, and
Hmm.
this is where I come in with the all electric movement that they are going to be adopting. Uh, it's a concept car, it's still some way out, right?
Hmm.
This at a time when globally the demand for electric cars has been plateauing. I'm not saying that it's not going okay, but
Mm-hmm.
the
Hmm.
growth, the spike that we saw,
Agreed.
3 4 years
Agreed.
back, that has plateaued. And really,
Hmm.
the sentiment around electric cars is somewhat demure right now, and people are
Correct.
again talking about ICE or some other alternatives.
Hmm.
Uh, so this effort of rebranding, it really seems either a bit too desperate, or they're
Hmm.
missing the boat somewhat on this, or they're just daft. Had
Hmm.
this been done, say, 3 to 5 years back, it would
Hmm.
have been fully on point.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
now it just makes Jaguar look so bad.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
my final submission on this topic is that you've given colorful rebranding, all that nice visual and
Yeah.
everything. You've
Yeah.
shown a concept car. But now what? As you said, now what? There's complete radio silence.
Correct. Correct.
And there is this agonizing wait for the real thing to come about.
Hmm.
Jaguar should have done the rebranding when they had something to launch in the market.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that would have been, at least it would have had an instant rub off effect,
Yeah.
uh, of whatever type, whether people liked it, not liked it, good, bad, ugly, whatever it was.
Correct.
But have a product. Do not have so much of a gap between your rebranding exercise and the car to come out in the market.
Hmm. Exactly.
Again,
Exactly.
from now till when you are going to have the real product, it's vacuum again. I
It
just
is big
don't
one.
get
Yes.
it.
Correct. Correct.
But one thing is something very clear. They got the world talking about Jaguar, good, bad,
Hmm.
whatever it was. But everybody
Oh
for those
yes.
couple of months was talking
Of course.
about
It was like a
Jaguar.
viral campaign. Like a
Yeah,
literally a
yeah,
discussion viral, gone viral. Literally.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but in fact, I'll just go back to what you had mentioned about advertising, and whether brands are kind of losing their
Hmm.
creativity. But no, if you look at some efforts, again, in the international landscape,
Hmm.
BMW came out with a series called BMW Films. It had
Mm-hmm.
Madonna and Guy
Oh.
Ritchie used to direct those. It had Clive Owen with
Hmm.
Madonna in the film, and there were several more,
Hmm.
and such a nice series that built the brand. It
Hmm.
was not just the car; the brand also got built, and the perception
Yeah.
of the brand.
Yeah.
People started, noticing it in a very different way.
Correct.
Similarly, over here as well, you need to communicate the brand also.
Correct.
Product is fine, but if you have the brand communication sorted,
Hmm.
people anyway are going to look at you as, if at all your positioning was towards the sporty side of things.
Hmm. Hmm.
For
Hmm.
example, Kia.
Hmm.
Kia is considered to be the slightly sportier brand in the Korean
Hmm.
ecosystem, right?
Correct.
So Hyundai is a little bit mature. Now they're going different tangent in the global game because of the N line and all the other sporty. cars
Yeah.
that they have. But
Yeah.
generally, from the brand understanding point of view, Kia is supposed to be the more sporty one
Mm-hmm.
or the sportier one. So the brand also plays a lot of
It does.
or has a lot of weight over there. It's not just the products.
Correct. Wow, that was a detailed version of talking about Jaguar. And but I think it's for even for marketers and brands, it's a good learning exercise, right? So they need to rethink if there's something they're not very sure about, right, before getting into the market with something like this. Okay, SUVs, Ashish. What's with SUVs today? I think I read somewhere. I don't know. I can't recollect what I read, but where I read it. But it's like that sedans are just fading away from the market now. It's all about SUVs. So even when you see the ads, it's actually even the brands are consciously trying to put more of SUV. So what's to do with this area getting a lot more in demand, and what's driving this as such?
Uh, One, I don't get the hype around SUVs all that much because what the two three segments which are exploding right now in the name of SUVs are technically not SUVs at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're slightly bigger hatchbacks, raised up hatchbacks. SUVs, we understood SUVs as things which had all-wheel drive, four by four. So all-wheel and four by four are also different.
Mm.
So one was off-road, one was SUV. SUVs were all-wheel drive and whatever else,
Okay.
big things. But now you have a sub 4 meter SUV. Ford
Mm.
started that trend in a very effective way with the EcoSport.
Mm.
Uh, and now you just have everything that is being given the garb of an SUV, which is not right. But at the same time, just because you have a slightly higher seating position, slightly greater ground clearance, uh, people are signing them off as SUVs.
Mm.
To a certain extent, it was also to do with the diesel popularity, the fuel popularity at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and there was kind of a direct connotation because you kind of save a lot of money with fuel efficiency and all that, and uh, automatically the sense of SUVs having diesels even from days past
Mm-hmm.
was there, so it had that kind of continuity with it. But SUVs, because again, it gives you a slightly more commanding driving position. You feel a little bit more authoritative on the road. But now with everybody and the grandmother driving SUVs, everybody is at the same level.
Correct. Absolutely.
So I don't know. It's actually more a novelty now to own a sedan. And
Mm.
sedans are again at a plateau level. They're about 11-12% right now. Interestingly, hatchbacks have been falling.
Mm-hmm.
And all that sales margin is going towards the SUVs, whether it's micro SUVs or subcompact or compact, or then the bigger SUVs. But yeah, SUVs are the trend. They have been the trend for a few years now, and they will remain the trend for a few years.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
am just generally speaking not a big fan uh, of pseudo SUVs. I would call them crossovers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you give me a proper SUV like a Wrangler or something, I understand that product. But if you give me any other thing in the market right now floating around as in the veil of an SUV, I would much rather have a sedan because I enjoy driving. I
Yeah.
am an enthusiast. Racing has been in my past as well. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
much rather have a sedan, sit low down, enjoy my cornering and all that.
Okay.
In fact, I would. I've actually had this conversation with a lot of people because they ask me, if you had say 20 lakh rupees
Mm.
and you had to buy something, what would you buy? And I go tell them that do not go buy what I will buy, because I'll buy a Volkswagen Virtus or a Hyundai i20 N line,
Mm-hmm.
and they just stand with their faces just hitting the ground, because why would you want to do such a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Buy the XUV 700 or something like that. But no,
Mm.
that does not float my boat.
Oh,
But
interesting.
anyway, I mean that's a different conversation.
Great. Okay, now going to. I think we are in the last part of our conversation, but this is one thing which is brewing in my mind, and this is a thought that's coming very strongly right now. Is that gender stereotypes are very strong in the way these brands are being advertised. So what I'm trying to tell you is that, like, if you see, a lot of things have changed with the way several brands under different categories are advertised, right? we see a huge role of the way the women's role in advertising has shaped up, right? Like whether it's a cosmetic brand in itself, where earlier the woman was shown more dependent on external factors, many other circumstances. Now she's taking the shots, she's taking the decisions, right? So I think we've seen this change in all categories of different set of brands. Why is it not changing in the automotive industry? I mean, if you have an example to share with me, I'll be more than happy to get enlightened. But I can't recollect an ad where a woman in the night, or forget the night, just at any point of the time takes out her vehicle, and just zooms out on a highway and enjoys her drive, maybe with a group of girls, right? And that is what is happening, right? There are enough women on the road, there are enough women self-drivers on the road. So why is there such a masculinity involved with the way these brands are being advertised, right? Why you always show a man driving? Why can't you show a female driving and a man sitting next to her, which is pretty much the case, correct? So why are brands not waking up to this fact? And I hope they do soon. But this is something, a point to really talk about, right? There's a point to ponder about.
Okay, so we spoke at length about the Safari ads, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and it'll be very nice if we all go and watch that ad again on YouTube, because
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be there. One of those persons, I think there were four or five, one of them was a woman.
Mm.
Uh, so a woman was showcased as the hero for an SUV that was typically a man's toy,
Man's thing, huh?
right? This is 90s.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, Royal Enfield does a lot of advertising with women,
Mm-hmm.
because, again, it has realized that women are independent. They have their own independent
Mm.
personalities, and they want to explore things which were typically, that whole conversation was essentially always revolving around men at the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's not that the automotive industry has not taken cognizance of the fact that women are driving the conversations now. In fact, with some brands, whenever they launch their products and we go for their product launch events, there are always some nuggets from the clinical
Hmm.
trials or the market research and everything that they do, customer trials and everything. Uh, so there's a lot of conversation around how the influence happens.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great influence by kids,
Hmm.
and there is a great influence by women as well,
Correct. Correct.
and women for themselves as well as for the family. So
Absolutely.
it's not that the influence is not being shown in the way that the market is moving,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, the advertising needs to evolve a little bit. 100%. More or less, the adverts are still more male oriented. There are a few and far between which have
Hmm.
women as well as a
Mm-hmm.
standout.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, more of them are largely male oriented, which is not such a great thing, because it's always nicer to have both the genders represented, and
Correct.
the story also changes, right? I mean, your emotion versus a man's emotion is going to be very different, and how you
Absolutely.
understand and connect with the car or
Correct.
motorcycle, whatever
Correct.
it may be,
And a
is going to be
woman's
very different.
endorsement coming from a safety point of view, if she feels
Yeah,
that it's a safe enough vehicle for her to
yeah,
sort of get into, so I think that will actually play for the benefit of the brands in the
absolutely,
long term.
absolutely. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and you said right that women and kids obviously, but women have a big role to play when when you take your spouse or your friend or whoever at a showroom, and she's always very focused on looking at the interiors, and
Mm,
what's the way it, like, does it have enough space for my kids stuff to be put in, and so they look at those finer details, which plays a big role in the final purchasing decision. I
mm.
remember long back, I think it's in the 80s, that there used to be a program on Doordarshan called Wagle Ki Dunia. I don't know if
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah, of course.
I still watch it, by the way, on YouTube. So there was one episode where he decides to purchase a vehicle, a car, a second-hand car, though, but he wants to see from the eyes of his wife if she's happy with the decision, if she finds it good enough. So from that era to this era, we still have women playing a very big role, in the way
Mm.
the decision. While we still have male dominating this area in terms of the usage, but I think she does have a big influence in terms of the final
No,
purchasing
absolutely. I
decision.
agree. In fact, come to think of it, we have another parallel over here. It's again a series of adverts that came out for a diamond ad.
Hmm.
And men
Okay.
typically, forgot their, no, not the diamond ad. It was some other ad. I'm forgetting what brand it was. It was a very, very famous series. But
Okay.
a person goes uh, to a shop and has to buy a ring because he forgot the anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy says that, no, buy a bigger one because it was yesterday.
Uh-huh.
So when a guy, although it's not related to the diamond brand, but a
Mhm.
guy is being shown as buying jewelry,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
can't a woman be shown as,
Absolutely.
someone
Yeah,
central to the
yeah.
car ad as well?
Correct, correct.
So yeah, I completely understand and I completely agree with you on this.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and again, it's more from the perspective of how the brands look at it
Yeah,
and how the agency that is creating the advert also pitches it. If you come up with an intelligent way of
yeah.
telling that story from a woman's lens, I don't think any brand manager or the CXO of that company is going to completely nullify it. They
Mm.
are going to definitely give it some
Absolutely.
thought, but you have to also think of it from that perspective.
Correct, correct. I hope, I mean, I'm assuming all the listeners of this episode, definitely going to get some inspiration out of this. And we might just end up seeing a commercial coming out with something very similar. So that will be a good one.
Yeah, I think look at Royal Enfield. They're doing some absolutely kick-ass things with
Yeah.
female riders. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot to learn, and
Mm.
it's not just about girls riding a motorcycle, a big motorcycle. No, even a Swift. Why
Mm.
couldn't a woman be seen throwing the Swift around in the hilly areas? Because the Swift is all about driving enjoyment. It's
Correct.
tiny, it's fun, great steering, but it's always a guy being shown as
Absolutely.
going
Absolutely.
sideways in the car. So
Yeah. Yeah.
why just take the car, take a woman, go in the hills, absolutely drive the pants of the car,
Yeah.
and just show that grin on the face of a woman is going to tell you
Absolutely.
more than just back it up with words. You don't need
Absolutely.
words, you just need an emotion.
Yeah, it's going to be beautiful. I mean, the way you're saying it, I'm actually trying to visualize this whole campaign right now in
Yeah,
my head.
absolutely. I mean, why not?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Ashish, I think this was a truly insightful conversation, and I mean, got to know so many things from you and your perspective on different brands, the way it's been marketed. I think still there's enough relevance to be laid on storytelling. No matter how much we get more heavy with our digital consumption and short form of content, but I think the storytelling will always be very, very critical in the success of how the brands are. How the customers get more loyal to the brands in the long term, right? Besides the product features being showcased from time to time. Uh, Wonderful having you on the show, as always, Ashish, and thank you for taking our time.
No, thank you very much. As I said right at the beginning, that it's always refreshing to speak to you, and you rub off so much of energy that even the guy on the other side just gets very animated.
Wow, that's good.
So
That's good to
thank
hear.
you
You
very
made my
much.
day. Thank you, Ashish.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
It
thanks for
was
coming on the
absolute,
Brewing
absolute
Talks.
fun. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Brewing Talks. Thank you for tuning in. Sign up and subscribe to Brewing Talks on eplog.media. You can also listen to this podcast on Ghana, Spotify, Apple, and Google. Catch up soon with our very next episode as I stir up marketing stories only on Brewing Talks.